It's been a month and a day since that terrifying Alaska Airlines flight where the door plug blew off mid-flight, causing an emergency landing. But today we have breaking news. Apparently the bolts for that door plug were missing before the flight even began. This is according to an NTSB report. Now, in the aftermath of this terrifying ordeal, 4 passengers are suing. They're suing the airline as well as Boeing due to this terrifying experience that could have been prevented, should have been prevented. Now check out this video. Many of you have seen it, but let's recap. The door plug for the fuselage of a Boeing 737 MAX 9 fell off a few minutes after Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 took off from Portland International Airport on January 5th. Now this, of course, depressurized the cabin and exposed passengers to open air thousands of feet above the ground, according to the National Transportation Safety Board. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured and the plane made a safe landing, but this ordeal is not over. The lawsuit goes on to allege that Boeing delivered a plane with a faulty door plug and that Alaska management had deemed the aircraft unsafe to fly over the ocean, but continued to fly it over land, according to the complaint. So it sounds like this was a ticking time bomb. It's surprising that they were able to fly this plane for as long as they did before that door plug ultimately blew off. Even more shocking, apparently Alaska pilots had reported a pressurization alert on that plane 3 times between December 7th and January 4th, but it was determined to be benign, which is obviously not the case. Alaska ran maintenance tests and put the plane back in service, but issued a restriction for the plane to not fly over water to Hawaii. But this plane had been in service since October 31st, so it lasted a few months, but ultimately January 5th, that door plug flew off, which would be a terrifying experience. But new today, that NTSB report shows that those bolts were missing from the plane before the flight even began. In this 19-page report, the NTSB says the bolts were supposed to hold the door plug in place, but they were not recovered because they weren't there.
I'm excited to announce that we found the door plug. Woo! Thank you, Bob. But Bob contacted us with 2 photos of the door plug and said he found it in his backyard. But we're gonna go pick that up and make sure that we begin analyzing it.
The report does not say who was responsible for the failure to ensure the bolts were reinstalled. But this NTSB investigation is ongoing. It may take a year or so before we finally get the closure and all the answers we're looking for. But I'm curious from you, does this make you feel safe to fly right now? The Federal Aviation Administration Administrator Michael Whitaker says the FAA has sent about 20 inspectors to Boeing's Washington facilities and 6 to the Spirit Aerosystems factory in Wichita, Kansas. This is where the 737 fuselages are produced. He says, quote, "Going forward, we will have more boots on the ground closely scrutinizing and monitoring production and manufacturing activities." He does anticipate they will want to keep people on the ground there. They don't know how many yet, but they think that presence would be warranted. Now, one couple who recently spoke out in a news report about this says that they were offered $1,500 in compensation, but many, including me, agree this is just not enough. This could cause a lifelong fear of flying and really should have been prevented. I want to know what you think in the comments, but this is something I'm particularly interested in. I fly a lot, and it must be frustrating for the pilots who made several reports about the depressurization issue. This just seems like it definitely should have been avoided. I'm so glad that no one was hurt, but it's interesting to see more answers about this investigation, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this.